Hello again. Here's that nice man. Now, what I'm talking about when I say that Scientology is not a religion may come as a shock or a surprise or disappointment or outrage, depending on who hears me having the nerve to claim that it isn't a religion. It's not absolutely true, but mostly if you look in my dictionary, Webster's New Collegiate Dictionary, or a nice unabridged dictionary, you look up the word religion. The primary definitions of religion have to do with something that, first and foremost, has the recognition of a god or gods. These are like big something in the sky who make everything and who have told the people that believe in this God. It's an act of faith and belief because you don't get to see the God. You're told that there is this big guy, Jehovah or Zeus or blah blank, and that this God is interested in everything, and particularly people of Earth. And here's his philosophy of what you must do and be and so forth if you're going to have a chance to go to the promised heaven rather than hell, terrible place. But the system of a real or the religions, the major religions, are that it's a system of faith and belief, not proof. You have to believe, you have to have faith, you have to know all the things we tell you, because you're not just going to say, yeah, there's a guy up there named Joe. No. There had to be a group of people who call themselves prophets or priests or whatever, who say, guess what? I discovered there's a God, and I'm authorized to tell you all about it. And you must know, because I'm telling you, that it's true. Take it from me, have faith and belief, and then all the things and joys that come after this lifetime, and maybe a few in it, are because the big soul is smiling upon you. If he's angry, watch out. It's usually a he. He doesn't get female names. So that's most religions revolve around a prophet or a whatever they call it, a guy that comes to save everybody. And it's an act of faith and belief, and it's transmitted that way. Usually starting with children, like, little Johnny, did you know that there's God? No, I didn't. Well, there is. There's a God. Well, what is a God, Daddy? Well, God is this big, great big, well, you know, it's God. And He made everything, including us. Really, Daddy? I thought you and Mommy made me. And it goes on and on. And now, here's the thing you have to remember. God, just like Daddy and Mommy, can get angry if you're bad. But, just like Daddy and Mama, if you're good, we'll get you a new toy and we'll be nice to you and love you. But not if you're bad. Not if you're like your sister. See? We want you to be a good boy. So, and if you don't, what happens if I'm bad, Daddy? Well, just to make this short, you go to a place called hell where you'll burn in a lake of fire till the end of time. And you'll feel, you remember what it was like when you burned your finger on the stove? Well, hell is where you burn like that all over your body. And you do that, feel that terrible burning sensation till the end of time. Oh, that's so terrible. So, now there was a guy that died so that you wouldn't be thought of as bad in this thing we call Christianity. And he died so that I won't be bad? That's right, Johnny. I'll tell you more later, but from now on you gotta start remembering. Don't get on the wrong side of the big guy so that you don't have to go to hell and burn forever. Oh, I don't want to burn forever, Daddy, I believe. So that's how religion, unfortunately, is often transmitted. It doesn't have to be done to children. If you come in with a lot of power and you kick out the witch doctors and the other religious forms, you can convince people, since you're powerful and you have guns and burning crosses and all kinds of things, you can convince them that your religion is something they better believe in, otherwise every one of them will be put to the sword. How's that for a convincer? So, Church of Scientology would like to go forward with the sword, saying, you don't believe? So Ron has become a deity, and it's an act of faith now, as this lie about it being a religion has continued. So I'm telling you that up to 1952, when Scientology was born, it was not a religious philosophy, and it is not a religion. It was not postulated as a religion, and it is not one. To do so would make just the opposite, and Ron pointed this out. Scientology is not a faith and belief system. Even if it turned itself into one, the real thing is not faith and belief. It's an experiment conducted scientifically by each person to find out if its hypothesis, if its laws are true. True for you, true for me. It's not like, have faith and you'll be clear. Have faith and you'll be an OT. As long as you believe that you can be totally free by traveling the bridge, don't fall off. No faith and belief in the real thing. Now, just to explain this a little bit further, by 1954, Mr. Hubbard was having a problem. The guy called L. Ron Hubbard. And it was a good problem. It was a real problem in that he had challenged both the churches and the mental health organizations of the United States and Earth. He challenged the churches and said, you guys, to be blunt, are mostly full of shit. And you've been making idiots out of your followers, and you've been treating your patients in such a way that it takes years to do next to nothing and it costs a fortune. Sound familiar? So I'm just brought something to this planet that can really help some people, and it doesn't trap them or enslave them. It frees them. There's no church, no organization to tie them up. They don't have to have faith and belief. It's pragmatism, meaning, is it something that can be directly experienced and proven and repeated? That's what we're all about. Well, he challenged, of course, the churches. If you heard his lectures in Phoenix about church, his early public lectures, and his talks going back to 1950 about the crude notion of mental treatment by psychiatry, psychoanalysis, psychology, and all of that stuff. These organizations were like, hey, that bastard, his book has now become a bestseller. We could get into trouble. So he made a lot of enemies. And part of the enemy thing was, you can't practice mental treatment in this country unless you're licensed to do so. So he had a problem. He wanted to produce a lot of practitioners or people that would practice Dianetics and Scientology, but he had to find a way to do it legally. Now, one of the old and interesting things that have come out of Scientology is, and you don't have to look at Scientology to see this, is that when people have problem of some substance, not a little problem like what are we going to have for dinner tonight, but they have a problem that's of some size that can affect their whole life. Like, do I want to be a doctor or do I want to be a swimming instructor? Something. It's a real problem. Now, say a person has a problem like, I don't have enough money and I want money. So some people will say, well, in order to get money, I'll stick up a bank. Or I'll start grabbing people on the street and saying, give me your wallet and your money or I'll kill you. So they've got a problem, and in order to solve the problem, they've come up with a solution that is going to create further and worse problems for them, even if they're successful. So Hubbard was faced with the problem of how am I going to grow Dianetics and Scientology into where they can do something with people and do it legally. So he thought about this problem at some length, and being a very imaginative fellow, he thought, guess what? Let's make it a religion. Religions are guaranteed, at least in the United States, tremendous freedom. They're a big mention in the Bill of Rights to the Constitution, and they're guaranteed all kinds of freedoms, and it's very hard to do anything against a religion in the United States. It can do all kinds of things with its practices and so forth. And if somebody incorporates a religion, if they want to, they can get it to become tax exempt, so that even though it takes in money in the form of donations or what its practitioners do, the people who make those things can write off their donations and so forth as being tax exempt. And a lot of the things the church does with monies are tax exempt. But there's a code by the Internal Revenue Service and a designation called 501-C3. And that's the code that governs tax-exempt organizations in the United States. And if you find an educational or religious corporation and you do the things that are under 501-C3, you can gain and keep tax-exempt status both federally and state-wise. So, at first, when L. Ron Hubbard incorporated Scientology as a church, a religious philosophy, and a lot of other things that it wasn't, along with that came tax-exempt status. No problem. 1954, 55. Okay? By 1956 and into 1957, all tax-exempt status, federally and in all states, had been removed by the Internal Revenue Service. Why? I'll tell you. Because Mr. Hubbard had the glorious idea that I'll run a church with tax-exempt status, but it's going to really operate as a business. And so he violated the rules that require that a tax-exempt organization has to show a complete financial report every year, not a phony one, but a real one, that shows how the monies it's received are being used. And he immediately, as soon as he got tax-exempt status, started to abuse that by having checks written to him personally and all kinds of things, including the amount of money he was taking from the church and the way he was operating, were violating most of the statutes, laws of 501-C3. So the Internal Revenue Service said, you no longer have that. So then Hubbard, instead of owning up his overts and withholds in the area, said it's that bad institution that has taken our rightful church tax-exempt status away, even though I intend to run this church as a business for both personal and business profit. So, for a long time, the embarrassment of saying to people who, no, you're actually buying services and they're not tax exempt. That's how it went on from 56, 57 onward. Now, he finally, with the help of, from what I've read in Larry Wright's book, Going Clear, which is a book you really want to read, it's valuable as a cautionary tale, and it sort of proves that if you're going to do something big, you should do it with a pure heart, and you should be honest, and you should not have a lot of overts and withholds and missed withholds and law breaking and all kinds of things, and say, we can get away with it. We're a church. So with the help of, I'm embarrassed to say, David Miscavige and some of the hired help who were lawyers and other people, an attack on the Internal Revenue Service was made and finally succeeded in the Internal Revenue Service, which unparalleled, gave up and granted tax-exempt status to the church so that it could operate as it does, as a business. Sad, but true. So, A, it's not a religion. B, has no business being a church. And C, should not have tax-exempt status. That's an accumulation of overage, withholds, and missed withholds that have brought it to its state now. And trying to correct that is not as easy as it should be. So, if we go back to ground zero, which is 1952, when Hubbard was possessed of his highest understandings and his best reality on what he was doing, he declared Scientology to be what it is. It's a scientific approach to knowing how to know and to gain the awareness of being aware. Period. It's not a faith and belief religion where you name streets L. Ron Hubbard Boulevard or you deify L. Ron Hubbard as a person. None of that. That's BS. And you don't run the thing under the umbrella of being a church when it's really a business. And that's the big, ongoing, continuous, overt action that has led to a church that now embodies the worst aspects of the history of churches, meaning freedom of speech is out, freedom of assembly is out, the truth is out. Oh, just read the creed of the original church and you'll see a list of all the things that are missing from the current church. I mean, if there had to be a church, and there shouldn't have been, but if there had to be one, its original creed wasn't that bad, because Hubbard, if he was going to start an organization, it wasn't going to be one that resembled the 18th century British Navy, the German Nazi system, and the worst, just the very worst of church histories of murder, of terrible things that have come out of churches that were all supposed to be, I'll tell you about the Prince of Peace now. So that's what we're up against. And I keep hoping that by declaring the truth about what Scientology is, that it's not a religious philosophy. You can call it one until you are blue, red, white, and blue in the face. It is not a religious philosophy. And it should not be leading to a church. And it should not be deifying L. Ron Hubbard. And it should not be denying all the freedoms that a so-called ordinary human government extends to people. Okay? I keep hoping that this message would go, I have an expression, the internet, go viral. Or is it viral? Viral, not viral. It's not male-oriented. It's viral. It's like a disease for which there's no cure, or could be, or you need to. And anyway, I wish it would go viral because it would be possible by going to the as-isness, which is the beginning of something. At that beginning, you have a lot of choices. Whether to continue it newly, always keeping its ideal form, and always, as time brings in things that aren't the ideal, fixing that back to the ideal, so that it perpetuates itself as a create, not a create, counter-create, da-da-da, until it no longer resembles what it is. I don't care if the U.S. government no longer resembles what it started out to be. I don't care if the Catholic Church bears no connection whatsoever with its original prophet. I don't care about anything. Scientology and Ron originally looked at all of those things and thought, that's not for us, kids. That's what's wrong. Not wrong in some eternal sense, but that's what's got this world being an even worse mess than it should be. So we aren't, as Dianeticists and Scientologists, ever going to produce an organization that is anything like that. We're here to help each individual, not cookie cutter, but each individual recover their own universe, if it's possible. Recover the knowledge that they're an awareness unit, if it's possible. It's a hypothesis that has to be proven with each person. It isn't, well, we know it's true for everybody, because everybody has the same case. Not true! Everybody does not have the same case. I'm here to say it. Maybe I'm wrong, but my experience is everybody does not have the same case, meaning the same what's wrong with them. They do to the degree that life is everybody's problem. But the idea that, anyway, I've said that before. Anyway, I thought if we got to the as-isness, the moment of creation that's unlike any other moment, when Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard, in a sense, both came into existence, and notice that he came to have a problem, and the solution he arrived at that problem was a mistake. I'll make Scientology a church. No, that was an overt, harmful act against a subject that is free of faith and belief. I hope you see how simple this is. Now, did he have other choices that he could have made other than declaring Scientology is now a church, a religion? Yes. If you have an imagination and you're willing to put time and effort and whatever it takes, yes, there are many, many possible solutions to how to practice Scientology and Dianetics legally, if you wanted to practice them. Not everybody wanted to practice them. Some people just, I got what I wanted. Thank you. I'll see you later. That was the idea. It wasn't to make something that everybody would be. No. That's the sort of thing we call a grouper, a cluster, give it a name, where all these different things lose identity and are called something. That just a label. They're all really different things. Like the body is a grouper. It contains all kinds of things that aren't the same, but are acting as though they are one. And we often seek, when that problem occurs for a person or in their life, to take the grouper apart and let the pieces go free. They don't have to. So Scientology's church and its terrible laws and all these different things made one big grouper. And it's kind of what I think it was a suppressive group. Repressive and suppressive, and that's painful, because they keep using the word even though what they mean the word and what I mean the word aren't the same. I'm talking about Scientology, not that deadly serious business or activity. They're two different things going by the same name. Scientology, if you bother to read its definition, as given in 1952, is not a religious philosophy or a religion. It's simply a thing that was put together to make it possible to find out a vastly larger definition of what is a human being. Here's a definition of a human being, a doctor's definition. It's a meat body with problems. Okay, a mind. Here was an enormous, it was like an Einsteinian definition. It made no claim to be true, no claim that its thoughts and its postulates, its hypotheses were factual. It had to be proven for each person to have any validity. Now, well, we've proven it, now you believe it. We proved it, so you gotta believe it. Look at that. He's clear for a week. No, sorry. Anyway, so using a little bit from both Hubbard and Korzybski, problem, overt act, bad idea. Problem, analytical mind is brought to bear on the problem, and imagination and all kinds of things, and solution to problem does not lead to more unpleasant problems and more lies and more subterfuges and more miswitholds and more things that turn the thing into shit. Solution is, here's how it'll be, and it will create more ARC, even with the professions that I started out kicking the shit out of. Because I'm here to offer something that everyone can take a shot at. They don't have to, but they can, and they can't damage it. There's no way to harm it. The ideas are as old as ideas are immortal. I just put them into a way that can be communicated to people easily. And yes, I, Phil, tell you that Scientology and 9X are here. They, in my experience, can be worked and used marvelously. They're both extremely effective. And they're not damageable. They are. And make wonderful things happen if you know how to use them. That's that old can opener thing. If you don't know how to do this, you can't open a fucking can. If you don't know how to use 9X and Scientology, you can't find out for yourself or anybody else if it's worth anything. But just remember, it's not a faith, belief, religion. That's what I gotta blow. I don't feel really serious about this. It's just that problem overt is one of the processes in Scientology that you run on people to clear them. You say, give me a problem you had. Let's see if you had an overt to solve the problem. Person changed their whole life with those two questions. How did you go about solving that problem? Oh, I divorced my wife. She didn't want to, and the kids didn't really want me to. I don't care. Now I'm happy. I hurt them all. Or, I had a problem. Yes, I lied to the IRS and got more money back than I should have. I had a problem. I was in love with my best friend's sweetheart, so I did everything I could to diminish him in her eyes so that I could get her. I mean, a human being's life is filled with problems followed by harmful actions to solve them. Of course, not everything, not every problem is solved that way. We solve many problems every day without, I hope, having to harm others or other institutions or things to solve them. So the Church of Scientology was simply based on, well, I only have one solution to this problem because I want to get going quickly. I'll start a church. It won't get serious and horrible like other churches though, but it did. 63 years later, it's a very deadly, serious, harmful church. I mean, it can come after you, and it's not the whole church, but the people that are specially trained to drive other people crazy, to destroy their reputations, ruin their lives, put them into things where they slave for years at something that they can never recover from. I mean, oh, these are the wonders of a church. Other churches have done this too. And Ron was describing it. Look at the horrors of the Inquisition. Look what they've done themselves to other cultures, to other people. And yet, we're the only way. Dianetics is not the only way, nor is Scientology. Those ways have existed. The techniques of Dianetics are somewhat peculiar to Ron, but even they have antecedents. But the ideas of freeing the awareness of awareness unit, the idea of enlightenment through understanding, the idea of finding out what we really are, to some degree, or all the way if you want to go there, that's old stuff. It's timeless. And it isn't done by faith and belief. If it could be, think how the world would look today if people could be purely beautiful. Oh, I don't want to go any further, and I won't. But starting today, the as-isness of Scientology is that it is not a religion. It's not a religious philosophy, and it's not a church. That's Scientology. I'm not talking about that organization that exists somewhere. That is something else. I'm talking about the science of becoming aware of being aware of knowing how to know. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about an organization that's a business that calls itself a church called Scientology. We must remember, Scientology is a word, and it doesn't mean church. No, it means knowing how to know. Okay? Well, I've had a lot of fun today. I don't know if I should continue making these little episodes. I'm now have said most everything. Well, you know, I love to do this. But, you know, desire, curious, all that stuff. Anyway, Tatiana has brought me to life, and she can turn me off just like that. Like a light switch. Okay, Phil, talk. Stop. Start, change, stop. That's it. And I'm like an automatic storyteller. So I thank you very much, and I hope that this is a benefit, and I hope that the Church of Scientology is able to, even though it's going to hurt to do it, that they dissolve themselves to no church whatsoever. And they pay the billions that they owe in taxes, and they free up all the slaves at their secret locations and let them go free, and they start, get a begging bowl, and some of them have to go to jail, I know, and some don't, but so what? And we'll give it a new start, what Scientology really is, and it won't be continued as a church. You have my word. It'll just be continued as something that isn't a church. Okay? Thanks again. I hate to say goodbye, but I must at this time. Do svidaniya, que le vaya bien, and so long.